Not only is the MPC an amazing standalone groove box, but you can use it as the centerpiece of your studio when you're working with other artists and producers. What that means is allocating multiple different input sources to control different tracks on the MPC, such as using a MIDI keyboard to control one channel with a piano or a set of keys, using the MPC pads to control drums, using another MIDI keyboard to control the bass line, so on and so forth, allowing multiple people to play those multiple instruments on one MPC. This is great for a jam session or just to keep the creative flow going. In this video, we're gonna go over how to assign different MIDI controllers to different tracks on the MPC so they all function separately, allowing multiple people to then input different ideas into the MPC on different tracks all at the same time. So to get everything set up here, let's just review what we have connected and how we have it connected. So from the MPC-1 on the back here, we have a 4-port USB hub. Over here, we have a simple Complete Control M32 MIDI controller just plugged into the USB hub. Then over here, we have the Pioneer Tarise AS1 monophonic synth, and that is carrying MIDI over USB right here, and then also carrying all the audio over the headphone jack, which is then split to a stereo input coming into the MPC. So for this, we're gonna actually set up 3 different channels. One is gonna be the drums that are controlled from the MPC pads. We're gonna do an actual plug-in instrument using Fabric and control it from the keyboard over here. And then we're probably gonna use this guy for the bass line right over here, bringing the audio in through the sampler. So let's just start by labeling this drums. Now after we label that drums, let's go into the browser and pick a drum kit. Instead of going over to expansions where you see the graphics, I prefer to go over to places because then you just see a list of everything and it's a lot easier to find what you're looking for. For this, we're just going to come in and grab Arab music and whatever kit is. Sure, that sounds great. So let's load that in, come back to our main, make sure it's assigned, clicking on here. So now let's go over to track number 2. Now on track number 2, we're going to assign it to a melodic element so we can play it on the keyboard over here. So let's just go to track number 2. And you can see we came up with Fabric XL, Woody, Woodplucker. That will definitely work. Then let's label that just so we can keep organized. Pluck. Do it. And now let's go over to track number 3. On track number 3, we're going to be accessing the synth over here and bringing it back in through the sampler. So we're going to select MIDI. And for the MIDI port, this is actually coming over USB. So we can see it's right here, Tarise AS1. And when we play this, even though there's no sound coming in right now, we can see that we're receiving MIDI. And then let's just go into our main menu, over to the sampler, and then just enable monitoring, and now we have sound coming in. So just for housekeeping, synth, and this is actually going to be a bass. So now that we have all 3 channels set up, we have to go in and start separating them because right now, whatever channel is highlighted, all these different sources are going to control it. So when we're in Plux, the pads control the Plux, the keyboard control the Plux. When we go into the drums, the pads control the drums, the keyboard controls the drums. But we don't want that. We want this to control channel 2 for the Plux, this control the drums, and then this just to stand alone and act as the bass line through the analog synth. So that's going to be accomplished by hitting the track menu right here. So let's hit this track menu, and now we have an overview of all the tracks that are going on inside of our project. We have the drums, the pluck, the bass, and then also the audio channel, which this synth is coming back into. And you'll notice right here under inputs, they all have a default to all ports, but we're going to start changing that. So now that we're on channel number 1 on drums, it's record enabled, and so anything connected is going to control that, but we want to go into all ports and change that to none, meaning that the only thing that can control this drum program is going to be the MPC pads when channel number 1 is highlighted. So now the keys do not control drums on channel number 1. Now we want to go into plucks on number 2, and for the plucks, we want that to be only the M32. However, right now, since you currently have track number 2 selected, these pads will also record it. But if we go back to drums on channel number 1, hold shift and record enable number 2, making sure that drums is still highlighted, now we have that separation. Just the drums, they're completely separate. This is no longer triggering the drums, and the drums are no longer triggering the pluck. Then we're going to do that for number 3. We're going to go from all ports, and we're just going to assign it to the Tries AS1 MIDI. Meaning that right now, remember, since it is selected as the main track right here, the pads will control it. But if we record enable the drums and then just go to the drums, now these are separated. So now in theory, if we hold shift and record enable all of these, making sure that whatever track we want to play on our pads is the last one we have highlighted, now we have full separation of all these instruments. And this allows multiple people to then perform using one MPC. One person over here on the keys doing some sort of chord progression, another person doing drums, and then another person doing a bass line right here. So at this point, we could start recording our performance. However, one more critical step is required. If we want to record the audio that's coming in from this MPC, we would have to come down here, hold shift, and record enable the audio track, meaning that we are going to be capturing the audio coming in from this into audio track number 1, as well as all the MIDI that's being performed at the same time. For this, we're not going to, because we're just going to loop it, hence the MIDI is going to be re-triggered on here when it comes back through. But if we wanted to then capture that, we could just record it into audio channel number 1. So let's go back to our main, our drums again. Okay, so for this, we're just going to do a very simple 2-bar, 2-chord progression just to keep it simple and sweet. Let's hit overdub and record this in. Now let's throw a bass line in. Here we go. All right, and now let's throw in some drums. So I hope this video helped you understand how you can take the MPC from just being a standalone groove box to being the center of your studio, connecting it to all the other producers and artists that are inside of your sessions so you can all work together at the same time and just keep a good creative flow going. Now, if you have any suggestions or if you're new to this channel, please leave a comment below on what sort of videos you'd like to see in upcoming episodes. Also, don't forget to click like, subscribe so we can keep this channel going and growing. Now, you know the sign off. On that note, thanks for your time. Thanks for your attention. Go rewire your studio and get everybody involved and start making some new music and go make something cool.